All right, I'm going to start back up. And like I said, I'm going to go over this program here. You now all have a hard copy of it. And I'm going to say this to you, and hopefully it'll be one of those things that after I say it, you go, duh. But what is all of this stuff doing? The easiest way to tell would be to comment out all of the CSS, correct? You know, you should be able to look at that CSS and figure out what it's doing, to be honest with you. And it's all pixels. I'm not going to lie, I took a course online, and the guy even said, use this as a starting point, so I added some stuff to it. I didn't like some of the stuff he did. I kept some of the stuff he had. Okay? All right. Then I'm just going to come down to here. Believe it or not, that is all the body HTML in the whole thing. That's it. So we've got a div that's going to hold a message. What's that message going to be? Your guess was too high, your guess was too low, you guessed the number in 6 guesses, whatever. All right, we've got an input area that's got it's a type number, so we will only be able to put either a number in or leave it blank. Would you agree with that? And we've got a button, and that's it. That's literally all of it. So this thing right here is something you probably have never seen before, but it's something that's going to make more sense, hopefully, both later on in the semester and even more so a year from now. This is creating what's called a JavaScript object. So let's say that I created an object that was called person. I might put things in there like height, weight, eye color, hair color. Does that make sense? Those are called properties. And there are things that would, because for all of us in here, let's just say that I put in height, weight, eye color, hair color, okay? My guess is there's not one person in this room that would have the exact same values for all 4 fields, all right? But you all have an eye color, you all have a hair color, etc. It's always the joke, because especially with this, but I've always heard people saying that, what color is a bald person's hair? What do you put down? I don't know. But we're not even worried about that right now. But we're saying that every time we have a game, the minimum guess we're going to be able to make is 1. The maximum guess we're going to be able to make is 100. And guesses will be how many guesses we've made. Does that make sense to everybody? When you create an object like this, they're put in what are called key value pairs. What the heck does that mean? Okay, if I said to you right now, what does JavaScript mean? Let's just say it was the first day of class, and I said to you, what does JavaScript mean? You might have grabbed your book, went to the back of the book and looked up JavaScript, saw it was on page 14, and then turned to page 14. Does that make sense? So the key is like, you want to get a definition for a word. So the key is like the word, and the value is the definition for the word. And this is the same way. The key is min, the value is 1. The key is max, the value is 100. The key is guesses, the value is 0. Does that make sense? So when you work with objects, you're typically working with key value pairs. Now there's more to it than that, but I'm just not going to get into that right now. Okay, here's some DOM stuff. What you can do when you're working with the DOM is I don't want this stuff in here to happen until the DOM has been created. Does that make sense? DOM content loaded means that basically the page probably is up and running, but the DOM itself has now been created. It has content in it. Content has been loaded into the DOM, however you want to read that. All right, so what am I doing here? Well, notice I've got this thing called game, right? See this? These are all of the things that a game has, but I can add more to them, like output, message, guess input, button. Wow, output, message, and button. Gee, does any of that stuff sound familiar? So what I'm saying here is the output, okay, what I'm going to want to do with query selector, we'll see more of that tomorrow, but there was actually, that was mentioned on one of the pages in here. What do you think this means? Dot output. What do you think that means? I would think there'd be a class called output. I would think there'd be a class called message. I would think there would be a class called, not one, but something called input. And when I look up here, I might find some of that stuff. All right? So this here is saying that whenever I click the button, I want to call guess value. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't tell it to call it, but it's like when we registered stuff in onload that we had learned about a couple weeks ago. We're doing the same kind of thing. We're saying, hey, whenever you click the button, and there only is one, so it's kind of hard to screw up which one you put it on, I want to call this routine called guess value. All right? Then I'm calling initialize game. Would it make sense to you that initialize game would do stuff like, let me run this. I want to make sure that, well, this will run, this alert, but it'll set my game up. Does that make sense? All right. So let's look. Here's initialize game. It's nice, small. It's resetting my guesses to 0 because it's a new game. All right. What are guesses? That's these. The number is going to be equal to generate random number. Guess what? That's very similar to what we had in the last one that I showed you. Now notice what I put in here, game.max. If I didn't do this, but one thing we could have done, we could have built it so that as you played it, it got harder. In other words, we could have made stages. So maybe the first time you play it, you guess a number between 1 and 10. If you can do it in 2 or 3 guesses, then it goes up to 1 and 25, 25. Then to 50, then to 100, etc. If we wanted to do that, we could. I didn't, but we could have. All right? That's why the max is used here. Okay, and what is max? Again, game.max is right there. So again, I only have to change it in that one place if I want to do so. All right. Then what else are we doing? Well, this is that thing that actually you would take out if you were really putting the game out there for people to use. Because that's giving the alert that's showing what the number actually generated was. But when you're testing, it's kind of nice to have that. All right. This, and notice I'm using the backticks right here. This is going to say, please guess a number between 1 and 100. See this? Right here? That's this. That makes sense? All right. And then we're calling message, and we're passing it blue. All right. I mean, I used colors that naturally occur. We could have used hex values, but I didn't want to. And what this is saying here, if you look at this, I'm passing in 2 things, a message and a color. The temp message right here is going to be called MSG in here. The color that I put in is going to be called CLR down here. Does that make sense to everybody? What these lines say is, if I've set a color, use that color. Or if I've not set a color, make it black. I mean, I got a white background, making it black would sure make sense. All right. So this says basically, look, inner HTML. We just looked at that in the chapter that we just went over. All right. So this is saying, I want the coloring for this, for my message. Either I have, like in here, I've set it to blue, right? And that's why when the game starts to run, it's blue. I mean, nothing earth-shattering about that. I could have made it a different color. All right. And then this is saying input style border color. What does that mean? That means I also want the border around here to be blue. All right. Then what? The background color. Whoops, sorry. There you go. That's going to end up being the background color for my button in the end. And I made the button the same color as this was. See that? And I made the text white. Now, if you were ever going to make the button white, you wouldn't want white text on there because it'd be real hard to read. All right. Back to there we go. All right. The generate random number, hopefully that just makes sense to people as far as what's going on right there. Okay. Guess the value. Does that sound familiar? But I wrote it a little bit differently. I patterned mine more after Lawrence, the guy I took the class from, because I liked the way he wrote it better than the way I wrote it. This is saying, if it contains replay, well, what does that mean? It means we just ended the game. So if you remember in the box where we put it, it was now green and it said start a new game. So that's what's going to happen when we do this. We're basically resetting everything, for lack of better words. All right? But otherwise, we want to do this. Well, we've got to guess. This will only be hit if we left that blank. Does that make sense to everybody? If it is a number field, we could have checked and we could have said if there's nothing in there, we could have set it to a value. We could have done that. But you'll notice that if I do run this and I put nothing in there, what's supposed to happen? Okay? It's supposed to turn it red, and it's supposed to give me a message that says, please enter only digits. Oops, I might be doing that, but I do. And if I make it red, or if I do that, there it is. It's red. All right? And not that that's earth-shattering, but just so you see that. And you'll notice, too, that if I put in a number that's less than 1, -4, I get a different message, but it stays that color. If I put in something that's more than 100, same thing. So I have to account for that if I'm going to do that. And that's what I'm doing in here. So if it's out of range, if there's nothing in there, I get this message and it's red. Otherwise, if it's out of range, I'm going to get this message, and again, I'm making it red. Otherwise, if I did guess it, now notice I'm adding 1 here. I made a valid guess, didn't I? But I didn't add 1 here to my guesses. I didn't add 1 here. Those are invalid guesses. I either didn't guess anything or I guessed something out of range. I'm not counting those. You could if you wanted to, but I chose not to. All right? So this says if I did guess it, it's going to say correct guess of, like say it was 37 in 6 guesses, and it'll be green. Then it's calling game over to show that I'm done. We'll look at game over in just a minute. Otherwise, I made a guess, but it wasn't the right guess. Does that make sense to everybody? I made a guess. It was within range, but it wasn't correct. So again, I'm adding 1 to my number of guesses. And now this looks really ugly because typically it'd be written on 1 line. But remember that question mark colon operator? This says if the guess that we made was less than the random number, we want to show in blue guess too low. Otherwise, if the guess was higher than the random number, we want to make it purple and we want to say guess too high. We don't have to check for equal because we've already covered that. That was covered up here. Correct? So if we get down to here, the guess had to be either too low or too high. Does that make sense? Now we could have tested, put other stuff in here. For instance, maybe we want to check that if you've already entered 36 and you enter it again, that it doesn't count. We just give you a message. We could have done it that way. You ever watch Wheel of Fortune? Because my wife loves Wheel of Fortune, so a lot of times I end up watching that with her. You know, and they have a used letterboard there, and somebody will go T. And Pat Sajak goes, no, and that was already mentioned. Well, we're allowing you to do that if that's indeed what you want to do. Okay? And then we're calling message, and we're going to pass it either, all right, either blue and guess too low, or purple and guess too high. But we're using that same message routine up here that we used for the other one. Incorporating the dry principle. Do not repeat yourself. All right? So trying to have as much code reuse as possible. All right. And there, all that's left is game over. And that's it. What do we do when the game's over? Well, we say restart the game. That's, again, that goes in that green box. All right. Display equal none. And we're adding a class called replay. What's replay? All that's doing is it's just adding a little bit of padding. That's all. So again, I come in here, I run it. It was 74. I'll guess 3 times. So I'll guess 50, too low, and you can see all the stuff works. I'll guess 80. That wasn't an 80, was it? 80, and it's too high. You can see how it changed. And then I think it was 74. Boom, and you can see how that changes. Is this perfect? By all means, no. But it's something very small. The actual JavaScript in there wasn't huge. 50, 60, 70 lines, whatever it is. The HTML is very small. We could have done some more work. We could have put it in the middle of the screen here. We could have made this a lot bigger. I thought later that that text should have probably been bigger, but you get the idea. All right. Okay, all of you, and you don't have to do this, Angie, but everybody else, you all got an email from me last week. Before you bring that up even, I'd like each one of you, excuse me, to do this. Type in iwt.rankin.edu. We're not done yet. Don't hit enter. This gets you to the Rankin server. So type in that. Stop. Don't hit enter. Do not collect go or pass go. Do not collect $200. None of that stuff. All right. Everybody has that? Then put slash followed by your first initial and your last name. And then hit enter. Except for Angie, the other 6 of you should have a thing on your screen now that says test document or something like that. Do you? Anybody who doesn't? I know, Jameer, you don't, but virtual, oh, you do it on your phone? Okay, okay. Is that what you got on your phone then? Good. What that means is this. When you log in using those credentials that I gave you, all right, that you can now go out and add things that will be available to anybody can put in this. So for instance, I can come out here and I can put G. Williams. And I get it, that's his. Okay? Now, one thing, it's never been a problem here. We're assuming you're not going to put stuff that would be inappropriate out there on the server. I suppose if you did, you'd get one warning, and if you didn't take it down or you did it again, there would be consequences. Okay? And they wouldn't be good ones. All right, this school kind of more or less is along the idea of that you're guilty and we hung you. Oh, you weren't guilty? Okay, but it's kind of like that. And it's probably a better way to be, you know, because it's the reputation of the school. They don't want smut out there or anything like that. So, but the point is, you can now go out there and do this. Now, I want to show you something else. If you have not already done this, and I mentioned this to you a while back, what you're going to want to do, if you don't have it already, is you're going to want to go out, you're going to want to type in Filezilla, Filezilla, space, download. All right? And there's a big thing right there that says go to download. All right? So you click on that, and you will want, do not do the server. You want the client. You will want to click the one here that says download Filezilla client. You only need to do this if you don't have it on your machine. How the hell would I know if I have it on my machine? Because you can come into your search bar over here and type in Filezilla. If it opens it up, it's already on your machine. One thing I don't like about this package is they're constantly updating it. And it's kind of a pain in the butt because you'll get a message up that says there was an update. Do you want to install it? That's up to you. You know, what do we have? 4 or 5 more weeks this semester? you probably don't need to do any installs. And if you want to, fine. Otherwise, just cancel when that thing comes up. It literally takes a matter of seconds if you keep updating it. All right? But once you do that then, and you actually bring up Filezilla, this is what it looks like after you've done the install. It's going to look like this. Well, where is it? There it is. Okay? I don't expect this to make a boatload of sense to you. All right? But look on the screen if you would. I'm going to raise this up a bit. Okay? In here, see there are 4 boxes? Everybody see this? In this first box, you will always type in iwt.rankin.edu. In here, iwt.rankin.edu. Then you will hit tab, and you will put in your login. Everyone in this room, your login is your first initial and your last name. Probably except me. I think I did put myself in as JP Scott. Why? Because that's what my email is. All right. But again, I'm not trying to pick on you, but Gabriel here would just say G. Williams. I don't know what it. I mean, I know what all your passwords are because if I have to change them or whatever, but I would never tell them to anybody. So let's just say his password is hello123. It's not. But I would type in hello123. You can see how it appears. Then when you tab again, the default port that you use is 21. Did you hear me? 21. So you type in 21. And then you click Quick Connect. Now, it's not going to work because that's not his password. All right? But I want you to try it. No, see it? Critical error, could not connect to server. That's why. Now, this is a quirky tool. And what I mean is, if you don't use it on a regular basis, it goes to sleep and it doesn't really want to wake up. What does that mean? That means that if Gabriel Breeding right here, if he says to me, hey, I tried getting in, I haven't been on this for a month, and I tried getting in, it won't let me in, I'll have to reset his password. Don't ask me why it's like that, but it's always been like that. If I'm doing something wrong, I don't know what it is. So if that happens, if you are not able to log in, you must let me know. All right? Now, again, look on the screen, please. What you'll typically see here on the left, and you can change it, is whatever your default thing is. For most of us, it's going to be, like right here, it's going to be your desktop. So let's assume, and this is what I did this morning. I'm just showing you this. I can't do it because I'm not really logged in as Gabriel. But this morning, I went in here, and under the desktop, underneath here, I had a file named index.html. I don't know where it is, but it was in here. All right, I guess it's in here. And I just took it and I dragged it over here. So what you see on the left is your stuff. What you see on the right, and yours is going to actually have 2 areas in it. It'll have an upper area and a lower area. So you'll have stuff in here and stuff in here. I recommend just using the lower area. Sometimes, when you drag stuff back and forth, you'll have to put it in one or the other. But if I drag this file over to here, it will now make it available. That's what I did for all 8 of you. And that file, let's see. Is just this file right here. Okay? So what I'm telling you is this will be well after Thanksgiving, but we will be spending probably maybe a couple hours a day for an entire week near the end of the semester going over a good way or a couple different ways I'm going to show you that you can rewrite your portfolio. When you get done, you will take, it's not just files in here. You can go in and grab an entire folder and drag it over. I wouldn't recommend doing that with zip folders. All right, because sometimes unzipping on here is a little quirky. All right, but if I wanted to grab, if I have a whole folder here, I don't even know if I have any, but if I do, I'm sure I have something down near the bottom. There. If I wanted this thing and I wanted to drag it over there, I could do that. Now, it's going to become very important once you do that, that let's say that, because I would like all of you everybody in this room, to make sure that your portfolio, that you make a folder and you call it, here's a surprise, portfolio. That's what I want. Now, you'll probably have like 3 files in there. You could have more. But you'll probably, at a minimum, have index.html, contact.html, and about.html. Depending on how you write yours, you could have more than that. You'll have a CSS folder. You might have some CSS in there so it's pretty. You might have a JavaScript folder, etc. But what I'm telling you is, so using Gabriel here, if he goes to iwt.rankin.edu/gwilliams, so you would put your name in there, /portfolio, that should automatically bring up that file. Does that make sense to everybody? That's what I want when I'm grading your portfolios and I'm doing it on the last day of class. At a minimum, I want you to have, if possible, you could make a SPA, which is a single page application, and put everything on one page where you just scroll down. That's okay. But I still want your HTML file to be called index. You can still type in here /index.html, or you could put in here /contact and it would bring up your contact page. I'm not lying to you, I want it as easy for myself as possible when I'm grading these. All right? Questions on any of that? So if you have not done so, please make sure that you can get in, that you have no errors. And again, if it does come up and it just says test document, that's a good thing. All right? And for now, that's just fine. Okay? Again, we will add stuff to it. Of course, we will set up things. We will do that stuff as a class. All right.